My involvement in the project started when I got the script. It just said Bob Odenkirk, attached to star, Derek Kolstad wrote. Have a look. And I remember for my first pass or read through. I was like, I am very intrigued. Let's see if I can talk to Bob and how he'll feel about what I think the movie is about. And I got on the phone with Bob and I just pitched him my take on the story. And I think it caught him off guard in the sense that I said, I think this might be wrong, guys, but I think it's a movie about addiction. It's about a guy who has squashed his love for violence and action, and he's a very unhappy man because of it. And everything he does in the film, everything that bad happens to him and his family is because of his own choices. He really is the anti-hero. But we portray him as a hero. We make it very obvious in a way. But if you look just a little bit beneath the surface, you'll see that it's a very counterintuitive story. I think the most exciting thing about this story for me was that the conflict is all in Hutch's mind. It's the most important conflict in the movie, at least for me, is the inner conflict in Hutch's mind about should he go back to his old ways? Can he hold it off? As much fun as it is to have all the action stuff and all the car chase and explosions and headshots and everything, that to me is sort of like the dessert. I think the meat and potatoes of the story is a guy who's struggling to find himself in the world and his new life that he's chosen for himself. And when you have someone like Bob, it's nothing but a pleasure to tell this story. The only person we had 6 weeks out from production, we had the cast wall and we had Bob Odenkirk in the center, and then we started thinking, all right, who else are we going to have? We've been talking about it for a while, but I think it was actually all credit to Bob who called and said, guys, Christopher Lloyd for David. And we're like, well, of course. Do you think he's available? Do you think he can do it? How old is he? Is he down? I mean, like, would he be excited to run out with shotguns and shoot people? And he was, and we got incredibly lucky that he flew out and he had a great time, and we had a great time with him. RZA, the same. He arrives, and I've been to his concert 20 years ago in Moscow. So I go back with Lloyd as an audience member. Same with RZA, same with Bob, obviously. But I was talking to RZA, and the first thing he says to me is like, Ilya, nice to meet you. I'm a fan of your work. I'm here to serve the movie. What do you want me to do? And I'm like, all right, that's just a wonderful thing for a director to hear. So yeah, look, the entire process, everybody from the crew to the cast has been nothing but phenomenal. And I'm not just saying it for the sake of, if it wasn't true, I just wouldn't say anything about it. The fact was, we went to Canada, we prepped in a super quick time. I usually prep music videos for 3 weeks. I prepped a movie in 6 because it was such a great team. The Canadians were lovely. And I have to say, throughout the entire process, there was not a single, and I'm not exaggerating, not a single bit of conflict that was more than just people talking about things and figuring it out, because truth comes from arguments. But there were arguments, but there was no shouting matches, none of that bullshit you're used to, where it was just a bunch of people getting together to try and make something special. In regards to Bob doing all his own stunts, the wonderful thing with filmmaking and the industry is that you can cheat everything. There's stunt people, there's angles, there's CG, there's all that stuff that is a great tool. But why use those tools when you have a star that really wants to spend 1.5 years training and wants to do it the proper way? And because it's such an important project for me, this is my first American movie. This is an important project for Bob. It's his first action star movie. The DP has never shot a studio film before. Production designer never did a studio film. We were all kind of like, guys, let's do the best we can. Let's not sleep for those, 4 months, but let's nail it as hard as we can. And I think, when the director really wants to do a great job and people feel it, you always know. When the star is there showing up early and doing, the hardest work possible, everybody knows. And it drives up everybody to work as hard as they can. So everything just made sense. The approach made sense. And we knew that we had something special, but only it was in our ability to make something special. And when you work hard, that's the chance. You got to take it. I think the biggest thing that we had to look for in terms of the feel of the film is the tone. And what you do is, when you sit with the script, when you rewrite the script, you talk to the writer, Derek, you talk with Bob, you start looking at, potential references for pictures. You look at films that you love that you might want to borrow some of the feel from, at least in describing when you're working with your production heads. But it was very important for me and Bob for Bob and I, I'm learning English. It was very important not to go the comedic way, which was very easy with Bob because, he's a master of comedy. But to make it restrained, because I remember talking to him, I'm saying, Bob, here's the thing. when you have violence, the jokes hit much harder by contrast. It's just the way it works. And same way in reverse, when you have comedy, a little bit of comedic lightness, the punches hit harder. So we never tried to go out for super brutal violence, and we never had to go for super funny stuff. As long as people would smile, because, and I sit in the theater, I love to laugh out loud, but that's okay if I don't, because sometimes a smile means just as much. And that was just a lot of discussions in terms of tone. And as we shot it, I remember, several moments when I would go up to Christopher Lloyd and I'd be like, Christopher, could you possibly do this one just a little bit lighter? And then Bob, try this one just a little bit more somber. And then in the edit, you put it together, and you think there's that balance of, you kind of find, what you're going for, but it's great to have a little bit of option to be able to fine tune the trajectory. The wonderful thing I think with this story and with this movie is that it really is, in a way, it's a rarity nowadays, where you have a theatrical studio picture that is very entertaining, that wants to be a crowd pleaser, but at the same time wants to give you something to think about. And it treats the audience in a respectful way, which I think is hugely important. And I talk about this not from a directorial perspective, but as an audience member, I'm tired of having stories that are just, I know I can guesstimate everything I can, and that's a lot of movies these days. And it's wonderful when you can have a chance to, even if though it's an action thriller, and you can sell it as John Wick and market it as a John Wick, there is something more for the more attentive audience. And, honestly, I made this movie for my dad, because my first movie, I made it for a 15-year-old version of me, because hardcore would have been my favorite movie if I was 15. And this one, I wanted to make it for my dad, because my dad loves going to the movies. Unfortunately, nowadays, there's not much that you can go to the actual theater to watch, because everything, all the sort of more adult storytelling, respectful storytelling, has moved to streaming and television. So I thought, my dad's, he's not an outlier. He's not one in a million. He is to me, but in terms of his taste, he's not. So I'm sure if we make a movie that is fun for the younger crowd, and they enjoy it on the Friday, but they will remember it on Monday, that's what we're going to be going for.